In January 2026, a winter storm pulled back the sand on an English beach and revealed something hidden for 400 years. The bones of a ship the sea swallowed in 1631 and just decided to give back.
Wooden ribs, curved and blackened, rising out of the sand. Rows of oak planks, still fastened with wooden pegs. Locals walking their dogs stopped and stared. Archaeologists rushed to the scene, because this was no ordinary wreck. These were the bones of a lost Dutch treasure ship, and the sea had only given them a few days to save it before the tide took it back forever. This is the story of the Fame of Hoorn, a ship that sank, was looted, was lost, was found, and 4 centuries later washed back onto a beach. Tonight, we take you aboard. To understand this ship, you have to understand the world she came from. In the early 1600s, the Dutch Republic was the richest trading nation on Earth. Dutch ships crossed every ocean, and behind all of it was one strange, humble substance we take for granted today: salt. In a world with no refrigerators, salt was survival, the only way to preserve food. The entire Dutch economy was built on salted fish. Around the 1620s, the Dutch pushed across the Atlantic to Venezuela, where vast salt flats baked under the tropical sun. They built a great fort and loaded ton after ton of white salt. It was a long, dangerous voyage across pirate-infested waters. So the ships they sent were not gentle cargo vessels. They were armed merchantmen, bristling with cannons. One of these ships was the Fame of Hoorn, named after the bustling Dutch port of Hoorn. A giant for her day, around 40 meters long, capable of carrying more than 40 guns. And she was beautiful. A high-status vessel decorated with ornate Baroque carvings, a floating advertisement for Dutch wealth and power. In 1631, the Fame set out on a voyage to Venezuela to collect that precious salt, but she would never complete it. Now, here's a detail that surprises everyone. The Fame didn't sink halfway across the world. She sank right here, off the coast of England, at the very start of her journey. The approach to Poole was notoriously tricky, guarded by shifting, hidden sandbanks lurking just beneath the surface. And on one fateful day in 1631, the Fame found one of them. The weather turns, the wind rises, and something goes terribly wrong. The anchor begins to drag. For a sailing ship, this is a nightmare in slow motion. Once the anchor slips, you are at the mercy of the wind, pushed helplessly toward danger. Her hull struck the sand and stuck fast. And then came the moment that doomed her. In the chilling words of the old records, she broke her back. The keel, the great spine that holds the whole ship together, cracked apart. Water poured in, and one of the proudest ships of the Dutch Golden Age died there in the shallows. But here's the remarkable part. Every single person aboard made it out alive. All 45 crew reached safety. Not one life was lost. But if the sailors thought their troubles were over, they were about to get a hard lesson in human nature. A wrecked ship, spilling its cargo and valuable timber, was seen by the locals not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. They descended on the Fame and stripped her clean. The proud treasure ship was picked apart by the very shore that had killed her. And then the sand and tides slowly buried whatever was left. The Fame passed out of memory. She was gone. She stayed gone for over 3 centuries. Then, in 1990, she gave the first hint she was still there. A dredger struck an obstruction and hauled up heavy, ancient timbers and a single iron cannon. At first, nobody realized what they had found. It wasn't until the early 2000s that archaeologists returned with sonar and surveyed the seabed properly. And their scans revealed something remarkable hiding in the murk. There, on the bottom, lay the substantial remains of a large, old ship, astonishingly well preserved by the very sand that had buried it. Divers from Bournemouth University descended into the cold, dark water to explore and record the wreck. And what they uncovered was breathtaking. The ship was around 40 meters long and 400 years old. Parts that almost never survive were still intact. The upper structure, gun ports, even the ship's galley. Over 1,000 artifacts were recovered, a time capsule of life aboard. Barrels, pottery, shoes, wooden bowls, pewter tankards, even a bronze bell. And there were the carvings, exquisite Baroque sculptures, mermen, cherubs, a magnificent carved head, speaking to the wealth and artistry of the ship's builders. Most spectacular of all was the enormous figurehead and the ship's rudder, over 8 meters tall. When they were lifted in 2013, it was the biggest underwater excavation in Britain since the Mary Rose. But there was one loose end. When they mapped the wreck, they realized a section of the ship's hull was missing. A piece of the Fame had broken away and simply wasn't there. Where had it gone? For years, that question had no answer. The missing piece could have been scattered, buried, or ground to nothing by the sea. And then the storms of 2026 arrived. A powerful winter storm, followed by 3 weeks of relentless bad weather, tore at the coastline near Studland Bay. And the churning sea did something no one expected. It scoured away the sand that had hidden a secret for 400 years and lifted a section of ancient ship right up onto the beach. It was a 6-meter length of hull, at least 15 wooden frames still connected to 5 planks, and the tree nails, the hand-carved pegs, were still in place and holding after 4 centuries. The team believed almost immediately that this was the missing piece of the Fame of Hoorn, the very section absent from the seabed wreck all along. The sea had returned what it had stolen, but it came with a catch. The same waves that revealed the timbers were now threatening to smash them apart. This fragile 400-year-old relic could be destroyed within days. So began a desperate race against the tide. A 30-strong crew of volunteers from the university and a local school youth group rushed to the beach to save it. And here's the beautiful, almost unbelievable detail. To avoid damaging the waterlogged wood with metal tools, they excavated this priceless artifact using colorful children's plastic beach spades. Picture it, a team on their knees in the freezing surf, digging out the bones of a Dutch treasure ship with the same little spades a child would use to build a sandcastle. They logged every timber, tagged every frame, and on the 19th of February 2026, carefully lifted the section free and carried it away by truck to be preserved, saving it with hours to spare. Final proof will come from testing the wood's growth rings against the known timbers of the wreck. But the team is confident. After 400 years, the lost piece of the Fame had come home. And this raises a haunting question. Why now? Why, after 4 centuries, did the sea suddenly give this ship back? In 1631, the spot where those timbers washed up wasn't even a beach, it was open sea. Over 400 years, shifting sands built up the dunes and shoreline we see today, burying the wreck. And now, rising sea levels and violent storms are tearing that same coastline apart again, unearthing what was hidden. The return of the Fame is a message written in oak and iron, a reminder that our coasts are not fixed, but living, moving things, constantly revealing and reclaiming their secrets. The sea gave up the Fame this time, but how many other lost ships, how many other stories still lie waiting beneath the sand for the next great storm to bring them back into the light? 400 years ago, a treasure ship set out for salt and never came home. Now, piece by piece, she is finally returning.
A treasure ship that sank, was looted, was lost, and 4 centuries later washed back onto the shore. If this story amazed you, subscribe, because we're only just beginning to uncover the secrets our world keeps giving back.